You know, it's wild. One minute you're like, okay, career advice. And the next, you're down this rabbit hole of political science, right? Which is exactly what we're doing today, deep dive into this whole
I
world.
like it.
And I gotta say, the stuff you sent over, especially from RoleCatcher, that website is
Oh,
intense.
yeah,
Yeah, like AI writing cover letters, that's a whole other deep dive right there.
right.
But okay, so political science itself, it's about understanding how the world works. Yeah. Like, we see the headlines, but this gets to the why.
Absolutely, yeah. It's decoding it all,
Mm.
how decisions are made, the impact, all that. But it's also the history, the theories behind it.
That's what I was finding so interesting in that role catcher guide. They were talking about political scientists advising, like government. That's a direct line from like research to real world impact.
It is. And that's
Mm.
just one way it can go. Academia, think tanks, even campaigns.
So there's variety, but they weren't kidding. It's competitive.
True. You need passion, for sure, but also you got to be able to think critically, analyze everything, and then communicate it all clearly, whether you're writing or talking to, like, officials.
Okay, no pressure. So how does someone even start if they're interested?
Solid academic background is key. Political science itself, obviously, but also international relations, sociology, history, that kind of thing.
Building up that base.
Exactly. And real-world experience, too. Internships, volunteering, can't beat that.
Speaking of which, they had this whole section on interview questions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it got me thinking because one was how to stay updated on like everything political, which is a lot. So how do you do that?
It's constant, honestly. Journals, good news sources, but also talking to people with different views, analysts, going to conferences. It's about challenging what you think.
Not just reading the news, but engaging with it all.
Exactly. And that's how you actually understand these complicated issues.
Challenging assumptions, being open to different takes.
You got it. That's key. It's not just about opinions, but where they come from, the history, the data, everything.
Makes you realize how much goes on behind the scenes that we don't even think about.
Absolutely. And that's just scratching the surface, motivations, the systems, all of it.
Kind of makes your head spin if you think about it too much.
Right?
But that's also what makes it so interesting.
Totally. It's for people who want to learn to question, dig into how it all works. It keeps you thinking, that's for sure. But that's part of what makes it so engaging, right? Always something new to explore.
And where does that exploration actually lead? I'm thinking career-wise, like RoleCatcher had these different stages, which I thought was cool.
It's true. The path kind of unfolds as you go.
Hmm.
It's all about learning and growing. Early on, you might be assisting more senior people, working on their projects,
Okay.
gathering data, conferences, that kind of thing, just soaking it all up.
Like an apprenticeship, but for like politics.
In a way, yeah. And then as you gain experience, you might lead your own research, designing it all, analyzing the data, even publishing.
So I got to ask, because I saw this in the guide, what does a senior political scientist even do? Like, what's that level of expertise look like day to day?
Think of them like, I don't know, conductors of an orchestra of knowledge. They're leading these big research projects, advising, shaping how people think about things. They might publish influential stuff, speak at conferences, even work with policymakers on actual strategies.
Wow, so it's a real climb. Shows how much influence this field can actually have.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And within that, you can specialize, find your niche. RoleCatcher had a bunch of those listed out,
They did this whole specialization section.
which I thought was really interesting. Comparative politics, looking at different systems around the world, or political theory, more of the philosophy behind it all.
So you could be like the Middle East expert or dive deep into something super current, like, I don't know, the rise of populism, all that.
Exactly. Or electoral systems, how people vote, political psychology even,
Hmm.
or environmental politics. That's a big one.
Environmental politics, that's a combo I wouldn't have thought of right away, but makes sense.
It shows how relevant the field is, how it's always adapting. Global warming, resources, that all ties into politics now.
So dynamic, always evolving, like you said, lifelong learning.
Exactly. Or look at technology, right? Social media, big data, AI, that's changed everything.
Hmm.
So understanding how that affects politics, the campaigns, even how governments work, that's huge right now.
It's crazy how intertwined tech and politics have become. Even in that guide, they had tech skills listed as valuable, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's not just about knowing the theories anymore. It's about dealing with all this data, figuring out what it means. Data analysis, navigating online, algorithms, even spotting misinformation. That's all part of it.
Data is everything, right?
It's a huge part of it. And you need the hard skills. But then also The critical thinking, communication, being able to solve problems, because these issues are messy.
Bridging that gap between the numbers and what it means for actual people.
Yeah, like you're translating it almost.
Exactly.
And that's what struck me, going through all this. Political scientists, they make sense of things,
Yeah.
especially now when it's so complicated.
Which is, putting it lightly, everything's moving so fast.
And it's not always easy. You know, people don't always want the facts, especially if it goes against what they already believe.
Truth hurts sometimes, as they say.
It does, and that's why doing ethical research, being objective, that's so important in this field.
It's like you're holding the line, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not about pushing an agenda. It's about the knowledge, the understanding, so we can all be more informed, you know?
Which makes for a better everything, right? More informed, better decisions.
100%. That's what makes a democracy work.
Right.
And that's where this field comes in, making those connections between like the research and what people understand.
Giving people the tools to look deeper.
Exactly. So it's about engagement, but the kind based on actually knowing what's going on, not just like gut feelings.
I gotta say, this whole deep dive's been eye-opening. Tough field, but man, you can make a difference.
No doubt. It's for people who want to know the why, who aren't afraid to dig in, all of that.
Figuring out not just what's happening, but the meaning behind it. So for our listener out there who's now like, okay, I want to decode global politics, any advice?
Don't shy away from the challenge, honestly. This field, it's all about always learning, being open to new ideas, and knowing that you can have an impact.
This has been great, and for you listening, one last thing to think about. What political thing, event, anything has really gotten to you lately? What would you investigate if you were the political scientist? Think about it. Maybe one day you'll be the one we're talking to on the deep dive.